Welcome to the Back in Time podcast with Kyle and JD, where every week we jump into our DeLorean, cruise to 88 miles per hour, and travel back in time to review our favorite films. Every week we talk about current cinema, the latest trailers, and we pick a new favorite film every single episode.
But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity. 21 gigawatts!
Don't say that! Never say that! Goonies never say die!
We're the best, we're the beautiful, we're the only Ghostbusters.
Now, here's your host, Kyle Autry, and his co-host, JD.
Welcome back to the Back in Time podcast. You are listening to episode 35, and I am your host, Kyle Autry, joined as always by my co-host, JD. JD, what's up, man?
Enjoying the night. I got my balls out. I've got two going up top and one going down low. That's
Sweet.
A bowling term for my fingers are in my bowling ball because I'm at a bowling alley. Perverts.
Why don't you introduce our co-host for the day?
Very happy to bring my little brother Jesse on for his third appearance on the Back in Time podcast. Jesse, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I want to apologize in advance for hurting your numbers for listeners this week.
I actually think you're going to drive the ratings, man. This is like
we'll see.
The Monday Night War. You're like WCW. We need you. I've been on a wrestling kick lately. It just won't stop.
Have you watched Glow?
Oh, I love Glow. Great show.
Yeah. I just finished it last week. Very good.
Yep. Can't wait for season 2. That'll be a good one.
I once had a glow stick.
All right.
That's not true.
I
just wanted to be heard.
So I want to give a quick shout out to Phantom Dark Dave, who joined me on the previous episode when we discussed The Sandlot. Again, you can check him out over at Dave's Pop Culture Podcast. Give them a follow. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, or any of our previous 34 episodes, you can find them in the archives and download and listen. While you're at it, remember to rate and review and subscribe to the show on iTunes. You can follow Justin on social media at UnjustJustin. I am at KAutry67, and we are on at Back in Time Pod on Twitter and Instagram. JD, we finally have the release date for the Cobra Kai TV series for YouTube Red. It's going to be May 2nd. They dropped the third trailer a few weeks ago. Are you pumped to see the show finally?
Did we discuss the third trailer? Was that the one with Zapka and the not caring about the cleaning of the window?
That
That
was actually the second one. They just put out like a full-length trailer.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
And
Okay.
it dives into more of the story. So LaRusso now owns a car dealership. He's kind of like this big shot. And then William Zapka's character, Johnny Lawrence, is kind of like down on his luck, and he's like looking grungy, and it looks like it's shaping up to be a really good show. I see a lot of people kind of crapping on it because it's on YouTube. I would like to remind people that, you know, most of these like companies like YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, most of them don't actually make the show and fork the money. They just provide the platform. So like this was done by a legit company that produced the show, and then YouTube actually outbid Netflix and Amazon for it. So it's going to be high quality. It's not like they shot this on an iPhone.
Yeah, and I think that's the important point to make. Again, YouTube is owned by Google, who is getting their hand into distributing quality TV programming. And I'm not a fan of YouTube Red. I am not necessarily a fan of any YouTube original programming, but this is kind of swaying my perception to be like, this might be a worthy investment to see what they're doing and what they're putting out.
And I'm sure there's like a free 30-day trial going around somewhere. So you probably won't even have to fork over the money. Jesse, what's your thoughts on the show? Have you looked at any of the trailers for Cobra Kai?
Yeah, I watched that most recent trailer a couple days ago, actually. I texted Justin about it. I think it looks pretty awesome. The fact that it is on YouTube might turn me away from it a little bit, but I thought it looked pretty cool. It definitely seems like they're taking advantage of trying to make Machio look like the bad guy.
And that's kind of been the narrative over the years that, you know, if you rewatch the movie and you put LaRusso as the bad guy, you can kind of see it from a different light. So I like that they actually are doing that with the show.
Yeah, when I rewatched it after I listened to your guys' podcast, I can see that side of the story, him being the bad guy. I can definitely see it.
And How I Met Your Mother really did a great job of sort of taking and developing and spinning that sort of like off-brand narrative. I think both of you guys have watched that show, like,
Yeah.
and they had the characters on the show, and it's hilarious, and it's true, and it's accurate.
I don't know if it's accurate, but I guess maybe now it is.
I will literally fight you over it, so that will make it accurate.
Yeah, I like the part of the trailer where he's like, "Is this the guy you kicked his ass?" He's like, "Technically, I kicked his face."
Yeah.
So, a couple of days. This is recorded before this episode comes out, a couple weeks. But at this point, Ready Player One's out in theater. We're coming up on the release of Rampage, and then Avengers coming out. Jesse, anything in particular that you're looking forward to seeing in theater over the next month or so?
I'm really trying to get caught up on seeing movies in theater. I saw Black Panther 2 weeks ago, or last week, I think it was. And that's the first movie I'd seen in theaters in a while. So I'm really just trying to get myself back into the groove of it.
What'd you think of Black Panther? Because we actually have never discussed it on this episode because your brother took a month to go see it.
I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, but it was different than what I expected. I enjoyed the fact that the movie was around explaining the history of the character. So now they can put this character in future movies and you understand who he is. I really like that approach. He didn't have a big, huge mission, a super big bad guy to fight. That wasn't the main plot behind the movie. It was more designed to explain who Black Panther is. And I really liked it.
JD, what'd you think? We never got your thoughts on it.
Okay, in terms of Marvel standalone movies, I thought that it did a great job, like Jesse's saying, of establishing who he is, what it means to be King of Wakanda, and how that affects the overall Marvel universe. I feel that a lot of like the overwhelming press was kind of overwhelming, and I don't think that has anything to do with social issues. I think that it has a lot to do with every time Marvel releases a movie, guess what? It is the best movie ever until the next Marvel movie. And in 2018 is going to be a domino of movies over movies over movies. So I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for the House of Cards to fall on them, but they're not showing any loss of steam.
Yeah, they sure aren't. And Black Panther is now also the highest grossing superhero film of all time. And they've already surpassed the 1 billion mark. So it's only the 33rd movie of all time to cross the 1 billion mark. Pretty impressive numbers.
Conversely, Blank Man made a lot less money.
Yeah, Blank Man did not do as well. And I don't know why. Should have. Blank Man's awesome, right?
Blank Man's a great movie.
Future episode. Just saying.
I think I would like to be on for Blank Man.
Yeah, David Allen Greer. Didn't get any better than that one.
Blank Man and his friend Other Guy.
Nice. Let's jump into Kingpin. And I want to do some intro here. So Kingpin is a 1996 American sports comedy film directed by the Farrelly brothers and starring Woody Harrelson, Randy Quaid, Vanessa Angel, and Bill Murray. The film stars Harrelson as an ex-alcoholic, ex-professional bowler who becomes the manager for a promising Amish talent played by Quaid. It was filmed in and around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as a stand-in for Scranton, Pennsylvania, Amish country, and Reno, Nevada. Hey, JD, what's your favorite show that takes place in Scranton, and why is it The Office?
It's clearly The Office, and I honestly, like, when I was watching this movie, I texted Jesse when like the subtitle came up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is in quotes in Scranton." I didn't remember that at all. Like, it blew my mind. So it's so exciting to think that Michael Scott maybe gave a quarter to Woody Harrelson. Just saying.
How much better would this movie be if instead of him picking up Randy Quaid's character, he picks up Dwight Schrute and he becomes a bowler on the circuit?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty great comparison, and I don't think it would change the movie negatively at all.
So you're saying is Kingpin 2 starring Dwight Schrute needs to happen?
That would be amazing. I mean, every time they stop at the bowling alley, he's like, "Leave the keys," and he goes in the back seat and rocks out before he goes in the bowl.
Still doing that thing?
Still doing that thing?
Quakers bowl 10 frames, Amish bowl 15, Schrutes bowl 30.
So I've got some interesting facts here we'll jump into. Actually, before we jump into interesting facts, since you weren't on the teaser trailer, Jesse, why don't we do some first intro of Kingpin for you? What's your first memory of watching Kingpin?
Yes, that's the first note I took here. First memory here was definitely, I believe this was one of 2 VHSs that we owned growing up, Justin. And the other one being Dead Man on Campus, which I insist is a future episode and I'm on. And
100% accurate.
Kingpin was, if we had a sleepover or for whatever reason, like a Friday night, we're hanging out, we watched Kingpin. I think growing up, I would say we probably watched this movie close to 100 times. And I'm being dead serious.
That's awesome. Hey, you guys had 2 VHS movies. That's interesting. JD, how many pairs of Jordans do you think I owned?
I would say probably you got a new pair each year because you're spoiled and I hate you and die.
I definitely had more than 2. All right, I had to throw that in there. It's a running gag, but it's a real thing. Sorry. So let's do some interesting facts. In this case, as in the case with most of his films, Bill Murray ad-libbed virtually every line he spoke in this film. He would read over the script, get the general idea, and then discard it. The Farrelly brothers on the DVD commentary said they are very glad he did because what he did was much funnier. JD, any thoughts on that?
Well, that's an exciting fact. Like, Bill Murray he obviously shines in everything he ever does. And in this movie, he steals the show, then Woody Harrelson steals the show, then Randy Quaid steals the show, and then Vanessa Angel needs 2 haircuts. So for him to I didn't know that. Like, that's fantastic because he's awesome in this movie. It's a very underrated Bill Murray performance.
Peter Farrelly called the film's box office failure the biggest disappointment of their career, attributing the failure to its release during the 1996 Olympics. Farrelly said that it was crushing. However, he said that 6 to 8 months later, when the film was released on home video, it became a big hit. Even the DeSandros bought it. Jesse, what do you think about that?
So I didn't know the box office numbers were so poor until I did my research for this podcast, and I was actually kind of surprised. That's the bowling heyday. So
right.
A bowling movie comes out with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray. You would think that would have done a lot better in theaters. So I was actually shocked once it hit VHS and got out to the world. I'm glad that it caught steam because it's a fantastic movie.
Absolutely. Although Randy Quaid's character is younger than Woody Harrelson's character in the film, Randy is actually 11 years older than Woody Harrelson. JD, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I personally don't like people that are 11 years older than me, so that's my thought.
Okay, point well taken. In the background, Will Ferrell provides several of the background shout-outs and is uncredited. I tried to listen to them. I think I can pinpoint a couple of them. Jesse, I'm wondering if you took any notes on that.
In the final match, it's attaboy something. The one guy gets quiet.
Yes.
Attaboy Luther. That's Will Ferrell.
That is definitely Will. That's the one I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
According to Chris Farley's agent, Doug Robinson, Chris was offered the part of Ishmael, but contractually obligated to appear in Black Sheep, and that derailed this plan. JD, can you picture Chris Farley in the role of Ishmael instead of Randy Quaid?
I can picture it, but I think Randy Quaid was the better choice. He's a tall, sturdy, broad-shouldered. He represents the Amish ilk very well.
I could picture Chris Farley in this just like, okie dokie.
Yeah, I don't mean to say no, but he wouldn't, logistically, with his size, wouldn't be a promising Amish person, right?
That's a really good point.
I mean, I hate to play the realism card, but I feel like the amount of work that they do and the controlled diet that they have, Chris Farley's not an Amish man.
I think it would have changed the movie a lot.
Yeah, it definitely would have changed the movie, or unless they would have had to add in like Farley, like, Father used to say I'd get bear claws stuck right here when I was little. And I don't know. I thought that was interesting casting. I've got a couple more too. Michael Keaton was originally considered for the role of Roy Munson, and Jim Carrey was the first choice of the Farrelly brothers to play Ernie McCracken. Jesse, any thoughts on those two?
I think Jim Carrey might have been able to do a big earn, maybe. I don't think anybody in the world can do Roy Munson but Woody Harrelson.
I agree. That would have been a tough one to pull off for Keaton. He's not quite as funny as Woody Harrelson, so I think this would have been a little bit more serious. I don't think the jokes would have landed. And then there's one other thing I want to add in here. Roy, played by Woody Harrelson, dreams that a gambler will pay him $1 million to sleep with Ishmael. This is a reference to Indecent Proposal, which he starred in 1993. Clever writing. JD, what do you think of that scene?
I remember seeing that, like that in the trailers, and then that in the promotion, and seeing it, when I first saw it in theaters. I had never seen the reference film, but I got the joke, and I think it's a great in-joke. It's hilarious, and if they were able to, like, realistically, if Chris Elliott had been able to actually pay them to do it, we'd have a different ending to the movie.
So that'll wrap up Interesting Facts. We're going to take a quick bathroom break, and we'll be back on the other side with the full review and a clip from the film.
Wait a minute, what are you doing, Doc? I need fuel.
Okay, we have a new poll topic up right now on the Twitter. Go over to @backintimepod and vote on this week's poll topic. We are discussing John Candy. That was a winner back a couple weeks ago when we polled you guys on which actor you wanted us to review. So here's the choices. I'm going to start with number 1. We'll go 2, 3, and 4. So, JD, number 1, Uncle Buck. What will we discuss if our audience selects Uncle Buck, which is about a bachelor, an all-around slob? Uncle Buck babysits his brother's rebellious teenage daughter and her cute younger brother and sister.
If we get Uncle Buck, and that's the movie that we review, fully anticipate us to take the DeLorean and just crash right into the 1980s and just be completely, like, absorbed into the culture and the way that teenagers act, and what can easily be called a little prelude to the movie Home Alone.
Our first dose of Macaulay Culkin with that one, too. Number 2, The Great Outdoors from 1988, about a Chicago man's hope for a peaceful family vacation in the woods is shattered when the annoying in-laws drop in on him. Co-starring Dan Aykroyd. What might we discuss if our audience selects The Great Outdoors?
Look, let's just cut to the chase. Is Dan Aykroyd not the same in The Great Outdoors as he is in Tommy Boy? Like, anytime I watch this movie, this is just a prequel to Zelensky Auto Parts. So get ready for a lot of Tommy Boy references, a lot of John Candy and thongs, and even a bear attack.
And my favorite line ever from Dan Aykroyd, time to introduce Mr. Thick Dick to Mr. Urinal Cake. Love that line. Number 3, the last movie that John Candy ever made, Canadian Bacon in 1995, about a U.S. president low in the opinion polls gets talked into raising his popularity by trying to start a Cold War against Canada. What might we discuss if we cover the 1995 film Canadian Bacon?
Look, let's just be completely honest with one another that there's going to be a lot of current political tie-ins that we may or may not make. Not that we're going to be political about it, but it's a great film that sort of tackles a subject that is much more applicable to today's times. Plus, Alan Alda is fantastic as always.
Great. And then our last choice, number 4, Brewster's Millions from 1985, starring the late, great Richard Pryor, about a minor league baseball player who has to spend $30 million in 30 days in order to inherit $300 million. However, he's not allowed to tell anyone about the deal. What might we discuss if we cover the 1985 comedy Brewster's Millions?
Cut to the chase. We're going to be talking about all the commercials that played on TBS when everybody else watched this. This movie was on at least once a month on TBS or TNT or USA, and that's how we saw it. And this is a great movie. John Candy is fantastic. Richard Pryor is hilarious. The concept is original. If I'm not mistaken, it's based on a book. And everybody get ready to take out some paper and some pen and write down your list of how you're going to spend this money, because we all think we can defeat this movie, but truth be told, we can't.
Awesome. So again, over on the Twitter right now at Back in Time Pod, and vote for our John Candy episode. You can choose between Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, Canadian Bacon, and Brewster's Millions. So JD, I'll give you a minute to try and persuade the audience. Which film do you hope our audience selects?
My name is Uncle Buck, and I'm here to fuck. Oh, my mic cut out there. I have no idea what happened.
Your mic cut out at perfect timing. It's almost like you planned it.
Right? Who has a button on their computer that just stops their microphone? What? Fuck.
There you go. So I'm going to go a different route. I love Uncle Buck. I'm not going to be upset if that wins the poll topic. But secretly, I am definitely pulling for The Great Outdoors. That was one of my movies that I watched over and over and over again in childhood. And I've watched within the last probably 4 months. Just out of the sheer fact that I get a good chuckle out of that movie. And I just think the back and forth between Aykroyd and John Candy is just perfect.
Damn it, that's a really good point. Can I change my vote?
You cannot. Your vote's in.
Millions.
The audience is now in your hands, audience. Again, Back in Time Pod. Vote on the poll topic. It's going to run from today on Wednesday, and we'll wrap it up on Saturday. So get over there and vote.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Oh, stop it, you. It wasn't that bad. Oh, my little Roy toy.
She came on like a storm from
All right, and we're back. So we're going to begin here, and the title comes across the screen. It says, Ocelot, Iowa, 1969. A young Roy runs to his dad and trips on the fence, busting part of it out. He asks his dad to throw the ball with him, and they go into the backyard. I kind of thought when he said, throw the ball with me, like they were going to play a game of catch. But no, they've got a makeshift bowling alley here. His pa tells him if he can bottle up what's inside, he'll be something sweet. Jesse, what do you think of this opening scene here with the young Roy and his dad?
This might be one of my favorite scenes in any movie. I used to replay him tripping over the fence over and over when I watched this movie growing up. That was the funniest thing ever. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're about to play catch, I thought, and then here they go. They got a bowling alley. Like, how white trash is this?
Yeah,
but
it takes it to a whole
good
nother
dad,
level.
you know?
Yeah, the dad's rocking a flat top. Like, it's just a sweet scene here. It's now 1979. Roy is walking into the bowling alley as credits roll, and he's dancing the Burn Baby Burn. The crowd surrounds him and with like oohs and ahs, and he pulls out his ball and he throws his first ball. It stops halfway down the lane and starts spinning, and Roy does the splits and points to the ball and hits a perfect strike. Roy is saying goodbye to his friends and father in the next scene. He says, "Can you believe Roy Munson, the professional bowler?" His dad gives him a gold pocket watch and tells him, maybe you can get it working. Or if you get into a pinch, maybe you could sell it and make a couple bucks. Roy hugs his father and leaves, and the city sign on the way out of town says home to Roy Munson, state champion bowler. Let's listen to a clip here of Ernie McCracken, played by the great Bill Murray, doing some commentary here on the bowling alley.
It all comes down to this role. Roy Munson, a man-child, with a dream to topple bowling giant Ernie McCracken. If he strikes, he's the 1979 Odor Eaters champion. He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud? Was I? Sorry.
JD, what do you think of the commentary here from Ernie McCracken here, this opening scene?
Dude, especially after you mentioned the fact that Bill Murray's lines were mostly improvised, to think of him just sitting there and just degrading and trying to trip up Woody Harrelson, it's hilarious. Like, I picture them like filming this scene and Woody just trying to go through his actions and Bill Murray doing everything in his power to stop. Like, I feel like the cast and crew, everyone is laughing at this point behind the camera.
Yeah, the one thing that cracked me up in the background, the bowling championship was sponsored by Odor Eaters. JD, were you a big odor eater guy in college? Keeping your stuff fresh and clean, or just smelling like shit?
I most certainly should have been. I wish somebody had told me.
Oh, we did.
Oh, that was you, wasn't it? That's right.
Roy is talking to the mechanic next. The mechanic tells him the engine's blown. Someone put sugar in your tank. Ernie pulls up in the gas station. He opens his car door and hits Roy right in the nuts. Ernie's ordering alcoholic beverages in the next scene here and tells the waitress to keep him coming. It's going to be a long drive. Ernie's telling Roy about an opportunity to make some extra income, but Roy doesn't seem to get it. Jesse, what do you think of that scene?
This was probably have to be a close number 2. I can't eat oatmeal without thinking about this scene. He's like, extra income, and he's just trying to spoon more oatmeal in his mouth.
But who orders oatmeal at a restaurant? Like, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's such sloppy oatmeal too. It's just dripping out of his mouth.
Go eat that outside.
Go eat that outside. Get out of here. So anyway, Ernie and Roy enter a bowling alley next. They're drinking at the bar, trying to pull a quick hustle. Roy is dumping beer into the plant behind him, and he's got a wad of money that he said he received as a bonus for door-to-door dictionary sales. Ernie tells him, "No way am I letting you bowl drunk again. Let's have like 6 or 7 more beers and get out of here." The bar hop tells him he might have someone that will bowl against him. So in the next shot, it appears that Roy is getting beaten pretty bad here by a priest. Ernie stands up and says, "Thank you for the education, fellas. You've given us a PhD this evening." Roy says, "Wait a minute. Give me a chance to win my money back. Double or nothing. If I can pick up this spare." And he's got a split, too. Ernie grabs all the money out of Roy's pocket and says, "How's about $1,500? The priest tells the other men to pick up his half. He's good for it. And Roy throws the ball and picks up the spare. JD, what do you think of this scene?
Okay, so rewatching this now as the age of adulthood that I am, I couldn't tell if this was like, did they plan this or no?
Oh, yeah.
You think this was 100? You guys think this was planned? Because I almost feel like it wasn't planned and Ernie McCracken didn't really care. And he was, no matter what, looking to just screw over Roy Munson. And he's like, well, Roy can't pick this up. It doesn't matter. Fuck Roy.
Never thought that till I watched it this time too, and it hit me. It's the hustle. It's all part of the hustle.
Props. Yeah. That's all it is. It's just a hustle that he's doing. So they go into Ernie's car, and he's got a huge bag of sugar in the back seat. Ernie says, "Oh, that's for my morning coffee." Ernie tells him it's time to face the music as they get out of the car here to confront the priest and his goons. And as soon as Roy exits the car, Ernie takes off, leaving him behind, and the goons grab Ernie, take him into the bowling alley, and they put his hand into the ball return as he screams in pain here. Jesse, what'd you think of this scene here?
Great Bill Murray quote. "And that bowler is you, Roy," and just takes off.
Yeah,
but
you gotta feel bad for this guy here. I mean, bowling's his life, and now he's gonna get his entire hand chopped off.
Like, how serious do these guys take bowling that they get hustled one night and take a dude's hand off?
Yeah,
I thought that was insane.
Pretty brutal.
Is there not like a separate Law and Order episode where he goes to the police and they investigate and then they're all in prison for 18 years?
The real version.
So 17 years later, Roy lives in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We see in the next scene, Roy is no longer with his right hand, and he's got a hook for a hand, and he's also lost the majority of his hair. Outside, his car that was once a beautiful gold convertible is now rusted over, and some of the car panels are different colors. JD, what do you think of poor Roy here 17 years later after the incident?
Life definitely Munsoned him, and it's very unfortunate, but he landed in Scranton, and we know that there's a lot of great businesses at the Scranton Business Park. And I know that you're gonna tell us about what he's doing professionally. So I'm at least hopeful because he does have a little bit of a job.
Little bit. Roy meets Ishmael next, played by the great Randy Quaid. Real quick, Jesse, what's your favorite Randy Quaid movie?
I gotta say Christmas Vacation, in all honesty.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I love Christmas Vacation, followed close second by Independence Day. Love
You know,
him in
his
that
character in Independence Day. And that movie hits home for me as a huge Will Smith fan. His character is off the wall in Independence Day.
one. Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy. Now, what does Roy do for a living, Jesse? I didn't write that down.
So I'm not sure all that he sells, but he's trying to sell condoms for the condom. He sells bowling materials, oil and
oil
stuff.
for the lanes, and then he's trying to fill up the machines with like condoms and crap like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a traveling salesman supplying bowling alleys with their essential needs. Glow-in-the-dark condoms.
I also I
Those are
just
fun
skip
to
past
play with.
Totally, those
Sell.
are fun even when you're by yourself.
one of the things I love right before he goes into the bowling alley, he's trying to put on his coat. He rips the entire sleeve with his hook. It's
Yeah,
like, you would think after 17 years he'd have that down pat.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
He sees Ishmael bowling on the alley here, and he says, "Man, let me give you some tips on your bowling here." And he just kind of move over a board or two. And Ishmael says, "Oh, gee, thanks, mister." And Roy asks what his average is. He says, about 260, 270. And he gets up and leaves. And Roy tries to stop him, but the guy working behind the desk says, "Don't bother, Munson." He explains that he's from the Amish community, and he's not going to be interested. I mean, he looks pretty smooth here. I don't know if this is really Randy Quaid throwing the ball here, but tall, lanky, left-handed bowler, I mean, you don't see a ton of those. Also, I don't ever bowl, so maybe there are a ton. JD, thoughts on that?
He's a little powerful with his follow through, or so I'm told. But yeah, no, he looks good, great form, and he looks fantastic in his black pants and black vest.
Yes, in that living in an Amish community where I am, that outfit is very accurate. This is literally what they wear all the time.
So picture Chris Farley in that outfit right now.
Oh, it's amazing with his bowl cut.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Touche.
You're like, "Oh, thanks, mister." Ishmael's riding his bicycle down the road next. Roy pulls up alongside him and tells him that he's a manager for bowlers. Ishmael doesn't understand why anyone would need a bowling manager. Ishmael says, "Thanks, but I'm just not interested." Roy yells at him to rot in hell, "You loser, you suck, you don't deserve a car." So 1 minute he's amazing, the next minute he's a piece of shit. Jesse, what'd you think of this scene?
I love it. It's Roy Munson's just down on his luck looking for a free pass. And you skipped over the fact that when he's counting why Ishmael needs a manager, you need a friend. You need a coach. And he's pulling the fingers of his rubber hand down.
Yes. Yeah, that is a great part there. There's a lot of stuff with the hand I think I kind of leave out in the notes here, but his hand is all over this movie. Roy has a run-in with a lady and her baby next. He spills a little coffee on the baby and says, don't worry, that'll come right out. And then puts his Captain Hook right into the stroller and goes to pet her with it. And then they go to the front of the apartment here and the lady's getting robbed. Roy comes over and helps save her purse. He throws hot coffee in the face of the guy and grabs the purse back from him. Roy says he's no hero. 9 out of 10 times he'd be running the other way. By the way, about the rent, she tells him not to worry about it. Just get me the money when you can. And then we go inside the apartment, and the guy from the outside that was trying to rob her is in the apartment. He says, "Hey, did you have to use hot coffee?" And then we hear a knock at the door, and the landlord comes in to give Roy a drink. And she sees the mugger, and Roy throws a second cup of coffee in the guy's face and then pushes him out the window. But she's not buying it. And he stops her from leaving by asking, is there something else he can do to make up for it? So in the next scene, the landlord is smoking a cigarette. Roy is hurling in the bathroom, and she turns and tells him to stop it. It wasn't that bad. What is it about good sex that makes me want to crap? Roy barfs again. I can't even say it with a straight face. JD, what'd you think of this scene here?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to remember that Lynn Shay was in A Nightmare on Elm Street, a previous episode that we did. Dial back into the listen, and we'll talk about her a little bit. And she's like prominent in the Insidious franchise. But in this is her scariest role ever. Like, she is so frightening, and she's haunting.
I heard through a video with the Farrelly brothers that when she came in for the audition, she was in character, and they literally did not recognize her. And before she had come in, they were like reluctant to even see her for the role because I think her brother was the producer for this movie, and he just felt that she was kind of being forced on him. So
yeah, they thought she was a homeless lady that wandered in for the audition.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Props to her, man. She nails it.
She went all out. Roy is driving next. He's in an Amish country. He's driving past horse and buggies on the road. He knocks on the door of a house. He's got a top hat on now and a fake beard, and he introduces himself as Hezekiah Munson. He tries to feed the dog, but he grabs hold of his fake rubber hand and takes off with it. Ishmael finally comes in. He gives his bearded grandma a kiss on the cheek and then spits out some of the facial hair, and then he notices Roy but kind of plays along here. And then outside he tells Roy that if anyone found out about him going to the bowling alley, they'd kill me. Roy tells him about $1 million tournament, and he thinks Ishmael can win the whole thing, and they'll split everything 50-50. Ishmael tells him no again, and tells him he better leave because they will surely find out he's a fake by tomorrow. The Amish work 12 hours, you work 8. Roy says the work won't be an issue. Jesse, what'd you think of this scene?
I love this plan. Roy Munson is a hustler through and through. So he comes up with pretending to be Amish to go infiltrate this kid's family. It's amazing. He is just an old school hustler by any means.
Yep.
It's a great idea, great little plan. I love it.
And this might be my favorite scene of the movie next here. So the next day, the Amish family is loaded up, and the young boy says he can't find Brother Hezekiah. The father says, well, probably didn't want to get his fingers dirty. Roy comes running up with a bucket of what he thinks is cow milk. He says he wanted to get a head start, so he went ahead and milked their cow. Took a while to warm her up, but I got it. He's got white stuff all over his mustache, like a milk stain. The father says, we don't have a cow, we have a bull. As Roy's taking a big swig out of the bucket, and we all know now it's bull jizz. Roy says he's going to go brush his teeth. JD, what do you think of this scene?
I mean, it's a gag that I don't think was original to Kingpin, but the way that Woody Harrelson delivers his lines, like, I don't know, I buy it. Like, I feel like he actually did do that, and he came on the wrong end of a male bull's teeth.
We have a montage next of the Amish working. They're doing some framework and cutting wood. Decent-looking Amish girl walks up by Roy, who hammers a nail into his fake hand. In the distance, we see Ishmael is getting picked on by the young Amish kids, and they're hiding his hat from him, and then one of them actually punches him in the gut. The dinner bell rings in the next part, and as they're pushing up the frame here on this giant barn, Roy hears the dinner bell and just drops what he's doing and starts running toward the food, and the other guys can't hold it, and everything comes crashing down. I thought that was hilarious, and they're not happy with him at all. Jesse, what do you think of this scene?
Hey, we all get hungry, you know? That dinner bell went off, and you got to go run and get some corn on the cob. My only argument is he's got one freaking hand. Was he really doing that much to help?
Agreed.
Like, how can they be that mad? Like, he already is just in the way. Like, better off that he is out of the way if he's eating food.
To be honest, they're probably used to it. I'm not worried about Amish people listening to this because, let's be honest, they're not listening to a podcast. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them have like debilitating injuries, so they're probably used to a one-armed guy. They'll work right around that.
Fair enough.
Are you serious, Clark?
I am serious. After dinner, Roy and Ishmael are talking in the barn. Ishmael says, God bless my brother with being a good carpenter. Roy says, I'll give you a clue to what God blessed you with. It's round, it has 3 holes, and you stick your fingers into it. Ishmael says, you leave Rebecca out of this. JD, what do you think of this scene here?
So rewatching this movie as an adult, he is very suggestive to the fact that he has given her the creeper. Like, he's not playing coy to the fact that he has touched her nether regions, right? They're not married, but he has definitely explored her, well, Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Vagina.
Oh, that's what it's called. Sorry.
Okay. Ishmael's father comes in to have a word with his son. He asks Roy to take the shoes off the horses while he talks to him. Outside, as his dad is talking with him, you can hear the horses just screaming in pain. And eventually Roy comes out with the shoes in his hands, and he's basically just sawed their feet off. Ishmael's father is telling Roy that they are in a danger of losing everything unless they can come up with $500,000 here. Jesse, what do you think of the scene here with Roy sawing the feet off of the horses?
I didn't grow up on a farm or anything, but the second he walked out of the barn holding the horse's feet, I was like jaw dropped the first time. I was like, I think that's wrong. He killed that horse.
Yeah, it's awful. In the barn, you can see like chickens flying everywhere. It's an awful scene. So Roy and Ishmael are driving next after he's convinced his family to let him go with Roy to try and win the money here. Roy is now convincing Ishmael that he should be a smoker, and if it was that bad, how would the people be able to tell you that it was bad in the first place? That makes sense. I mean, how can the Surgeon General say it's bad if they've been smoking all these years and they're still alive? JD, any thoughts on that?
It's soundproof logic, and for what it's worth, Kurt Vonnegut, before he died, proposed suing the tobacco industry as a lifelong smoker, and he said they promised me I would die of lung cancer, and he never did. And so he was very upset. So that counts.
At the bowling alley, Roy has set up a game for Ishmael to take on a local guy, and they go outside after the the game, and let's listen to a clip here of how he did first time out.
Ish, what happened in there?
Well, I don't know. I thought I played pretty good. You know, he's just a little better than me, that's all.
Pretty good, huh? 186.
You lost to a club player! What? That's not supposed to happen. You're carrying a 270 average.
What do you expect? I mean, you guys with your 10 frames.
What do you mean, you guys with your 10 frames?
Well, my grandpa always taught me to bowl 15 frames. It's like I told you before. We Amish, we do everything half again as hard as you do. 10 frames. That's for Quakers.
That's for Quakers. I love it. Jesse, what'd you think of this scene?
I think Roy Munson's freak out is great. You lost to a club bowler. I thought that was hilarious. But the whole 15 frames thing, I thought was a super clever little bit of writing. And I would like to hear Justin's input on that too. But now they've created like a window for him to like actually have to coach, and you know he's not some rock star bowler. You find out he needs some coaching. So I thought it was a really clever way of throwing it in there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that you make, and I totally agree with you in terms of like how they develop this story. It provides them an opportunity to develop a lot of the upcoming montages. But you know, I personally never would have thought that he bowls 15 frames. Like any bowler would probably be like, yeah, I can carry a 270 average if I can bowl 15, 20, 30, 70 frames. So it takes a twist, and it provides an opportunity to develop both of the characters in a very organic way.
So they're in the car next, and they're kind of going back and forth here. Roy tells him that he's going to get destroyed in Reno. Ishmael wants to go to Reno anyway, and Ishmael tells him to let him out of the car. His family would expect him back, and they're expecting him to fail. They're expecting him to fail as soon as he gets Munson out here by himself. Roy wants to know what Munson means. Ishmael explains it's basically a figure of speech, paddling up a creek. To have the whole world in your palm and then blow it. He starts walking in the other direction, and Roy backs up the car and tells him he's passed the test. I love how gullible Ishmael is here. JD, what'd you think of this scene here?
As Jesse already mentioned, Roy Munson he's a wheeler, he's a dealer, he knows what he's doing, he's manipulating the hell out of Ishmael. Like it's like his grand plan is so intricately thought out. He's almost the villain of this movie. Like, who's worse, him or the great Stanley? I love the great Stanley.
Next scene, Ishmael is learning how to bowl from Roy. We have a compilation of Roy teaching him the game of bowling. I love the part where Roy goes to give Ish a high five, and his hand just goes flying and it lands on a lady's breast who's making out with her boyfriend. He has to come over and kind of pick it off. Ishmael's taking a dump next, and he's reading the paper and peppering Roy with questions. Roy is annoyed with all the questions, and Ish says he can figure some things out on his own. And the camera pans out, and he's taking a dump in a urinal. Jesse, what'd you think of this quick little montage here of the training?
Oh, it's a great montage. They cover, obviously montage gets you a lot in a little bit of time, but they cover the whole, now he's an actual bowler. He's getting trained by a pro bowler, so got it. Now we can move back to some funny stuff in the outside of bowling storyline. And then the pooping in the urinal thing is just absolutely good. You think for that price you get 2 testicles.
At the bowling alley, Roy is trying to run his hustle. The bar hop isn't having it. He says, if you guys want a real money game, show up at this address tonight at midnight and bring some cash. So they get to the address. It's a giant house. They go inside, and a guy tells Munson to cut the shit. Now, can your guy bowl or not? We meet Claudia next. Very good-looking woman. Ishmael starts laughing hard, and Roy wants to know what he's laughing about. Ishmael says, I didn't want to say anything, but with hips like those, she won't be able to have more than 6 kids. JD, what'd you think of this scene here?
You can't argue with his logic. Like, really? I don't know how many children Vanessa Angel has, but is it more than 6? I feel like he predicted her future.
Good point. We should look into it. At the bowling alley, they're in the last frame. Ishmael has to bowl 3 straight strikes to win. Claudia tries to distract him by going to the fridge and grabbing a beer. When she turns around, her nips are super hard. She asks if anyone else wants a drink, and Roy says, yeah, I'd like one. So Ishmael goes over to grab the beer out of the fridge instead, and when he turns around, his nipples are hard now. He says, wow, bit nippy in here. And then he goes over and bowls his 3rd strike to win the money. Claudia laughs at her boyfriend for losing to the farm boy, as she calls him, and he takes her into the next room, and you can hear her getting smacked around. And then he comes back out to pay the money. Roy pulls out his wad of money to kind of combine them, and we can see a $100 bill, but the rest of it's all fake money. So they're about to get beat up here when the lights go off, and when they turn back on, Roy and Ishmael are gone, and they're outside getting into the car with Claudia to take off. Jesse, thoughts on this scene here?
Whew, there's a big scene that you threw at me. So you skipped over probably one of the more quotable lines in the whole movie is the great Stanley's, "An open in the 10th, I was robbed." I think every time I've ever bowled and had it open in the 10th frame, I say that line. Justin, I know you are with me on that one.
Yeah, you literally stole that from the conversation we had a few days ago, you rat bastard.
Yeah, it worked out timing-wise. I got this scene.
And props to you.
I'm also... Roy Munson's getting caught with the Monopoly money. A little uncharacteristic of him. I don't think you guys caught in the gas station in the beginning. He pulled a sleight of hand and only gave the guy a $1 bill instead of a 20 for his coffee.
Oh, wow.
So he's good with pulling people over. So I'm kind of shocked that he got a little sloppy here and got himself busted. But then that escalates real quickly. Stanley and his buddy just turn it from 0 to 10 like on a dime.
They're eating inside a bar next. Claudia says it must be tough when you're spanking your monkey with his fake hand. Ishmael says, you have a monkey? And a girl comes over to the table to ask Ishmael to dance. Roy thought at first she was asking him, but she explained no, she's talking to him, and points to Ishmael. On the dance floor, Ishmael says, so this is rock and roll. and they're playing country music. The girl's boyfriend enters next, and they're about to kick the crap out of Ishmael when Roy comes over to save him. Well, we think. He instead punches Ishmael in the face and says, "You don't try to mow another man's lawn." Just, JD, what'd you think of this scene here?
This is a very clever scene, and in terms of screenwriting, it's a very unexpected. We're figuring that Roy Munson's going to react in one way, and he reacts the complete opposite of anything that we expect, and he just punches Ishmael in the face, just obliterates him.
Now I've got a couple interesting facts here. The guy that comes in, her boyfriend, is Major League Baseball pitcher Roger Clemens, and he's the one that is going to punch out Ishmael, playing the part of Skidmark. Clemens currently ranks 8th on the all-time wins list in Major League Baseball pitcher history, and it has been confirmed that Skidmark is a relative or related to Seabass from Dumb and Dumber, linking the two movies together.
Well done.
In the car, Claudia is tending to Ishmael. She thinks the punch was uncalled for, but the worst part is afterwards you had beers with those guys and then rubbed his eyes with hot sauce. Roy says he didn't want him to catch on. Roy gives them some food and tells them to eat it, and it might be their last meal seeing that they're out of money. Roy tells Ishmael that Claudia is going to tag along and be a partner, and Ishmael says, "Mr. Munson, if I could see you, I'd kiss you." Jesse, what'd you think of this scene?
So I think the word that Roy Munson uses, didn't want to think that we were in cahoots.
Right.
And I think that this movie taught me what that word meant. So I'm learning while watching this movie.
We have another montage next of Claudia dressed all slutty here, just trying to distract other bowlers. And Roy is just collecting money left and right from these guys. But I really love the part here where the distractions don't work on the old farmers. So Ishmael whispers in the Roy's ear, and then the next time they throw, it's a gutter ball, and then they pan over and we see a goat was there distracting them. JD, what'd you think of that?
It's very logical, and when I first saw this movie, I did not realize just how deep the South goes.
In the next scene here, we're in the hotel. Roy is flossing his teeth with his hook, and then later that night he wakes up Ishmael to try and leave without Claudia, and they sneak out to the car. But as they get to the car, Claudia is already in the front seat, and she's going to have a word with Roy, and she goes off to the side and tries to explain him, or he goes over to the side to try to explain himself, but he gets kicked square in the nuts. And then Roy thinks he's being taken for a ride by her, and they go back and forth. Claudia kicks the shit out of Roy here. Roy tries to punch her right in the tits, but her boobs, they just bounce right off. And then they finally stop fighting and look over to the car, and Ishmael is gone, and he left a note saying, "I thought you were my friends. Goodbye." Jesse, what'd you think about that scene?
First of all, if you're watching this and trying to take notes on how to fight a girl, I think this is to make sure is a don't do, is punch them in the boobs, apparently. Because your punches will just bounce off and make a funny sound. But this scene is pretty funny. I think I tore my sack. And then it's also really good at helping. One of the things I love about this movie is like how they develop the relationships between them all. And this scene's like really, really important for that, because you have to develop their relationships over a short period of time. And I think in a lot of movies with this similar type of plot line, the relationships get rushed, but this movie makes a really good job at like really defining the relationship the three of them have, and this scene is huge in that. So I think it's very key to the movie.
So in this next scene here, they're driving down the road trying to find Ishmael. Claudia says, "I hope he doesn't get Munsoned out here." And they arrive at Oslet, Iowa. Roy says, "Oh shit, we're right near my hometown." He takes a swig of some alcohol. He says, "It's been 17 years since I've shown my face around here." And the town is like a ghost town now. The old ice cream shop is out of business. His dad's gas station's gone. Claudia asks why it took so long for him to come back. Roy says, "Everyone expected me to do so well, especially my dad. He just didn't want to disappoint him." Roy says, "He taught me a lot. I got word that he died about 10 years ago, and I didn't even have the nerve to come back for the funeral." He drops the pocket watch at their man-made bowling alley behind the gas station and says his dad would not be proud of him today. JD, this probably one of the few emotional scenes in the movie here. What'd you think?
This scene is extraordinarily well paced, and I really think it's well developed. And it, like you're saying, there's not many emotional scenes in this movie, but it gives us some insight into who Roy Munson is, the relationship he has with his father, and then the deflection that he has gone through after his horrible spiral leading to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Like, to go from Iowa to Scranton, Pennsylvania, that's a depressing journey.
In the
That
next
was a
scene,
joke. Laugh. Everybody laugh.
I'll give you my fake chuckle. That's all you get. The next scene here, Roy and Claudia are trying to track down Ishmael. Everyone they talk to say, yeah, he was here. And then they finally stop at a strip club. And the bar hop says, they ask the bar hop, have you seen an older Amish-looking guy? And he just points to the stage. And Ishmael is cross-dressed and doing a little striptease here. So in the next scene, they're just running from the club and jumping in the car. And in the car, they explain to him that they were fighting because they both had their own run of bad luck and they didn't want to get hurt. Jesse, what'd you think of Ishmael having the cross-dress here and strip?
So I've got the pleasure, whatever copy I have, must have some deleted scenes in my copy of the movie here, because there's a scene that I watched where he was getting a lap dance and couldn't pay for it, and they're taking him out back to go tune him up a little bit, and he's like, well, can I work it off somehow? So
oh, wow. Yeah, that's definitely not in here because I'm watching it right now.
Yeah, and I've got it up too, and I just scrolled past that scene as well. So I think that's kind of a, if that's the real story behind why he's stripping, is to work off some debt. I think that's kind of funny. And also the scene with the snake guy is hilarious. And he bites the snake back. It killed me.
That's a good scene. Another montage next of Ishmael and Roy playing practical jokes on each other. Ishmael is flossing his teeth, and he's got these giant chunks of food on it. Ish takes a giant bong hit here, and then they finally arrive in Las Vegas. Ish wakes up. He was sleeping with a Jack and Coke hat on, kind of like those football beer helmets, but he is rocking Coca-Cola and Jack. And then he jumps out of bed, scared to death of his tattoo. He's got this little tiny tattoo on his chest. And he goes over the mirror and looks at it. He says, this isn't so bad. But then we see Roy gasp in the background, and Ish turns around to see what's the matter. And he's got a giant back tattoo of a large-breasted bikini woman. And Roy says, nothing, it's fine. Jesse, I know you recently just had some ink done today. What'd you think of this scene here with the large-breasted bikini woman tattoo?
You notice the girl's got a mustache too, and
yep.
Oh man, it's awesome. Like that's, I think, a great. That's Vegas for you, you know. Wake up with a tattoo you don't remember. That's perfect. Or they're in Reno, right?
Yeah,
they're in. Yeah, so Nevada in a nutshell is that's
it's based in Vegas. But you'll definitely not. You would feel that when you woke up, that big old tattoo on your back.
So down in the casino, we meet the gambler, played by Chris Elliott. I always recognize him from the Cabin Boy movie. JD, do you remember Cabin Boy?
Oh, I most certainly do. That's a great name drop by you.
I don't know that I actually ever sat down and watched that entire movie. But I always remember seeing the VHS at Blockbuster. And then I also remember it being advertised on a VHS I owned. I think I had 200 of them. I'm not bragging.
Okay, Gabe Lewis.
Rich son of a bitch.
What do you think of this scene here where the gambler lays down $800,000? It says, hey, Dollface, give me some good luck here. And then Ish just grabs it, throws it, and wins for him. And then just turns around and walks away.
So I've been to Las Vegas once, and my fair share of casinos across this fine country. I'm pretty sure $800,000 is going to break the table limit for the craps table.
Yeah.
So this guy just happens to have a stack of chips he's throwing down. And, good on Ish. Just grabbing the dice and giving him a chuck. That would probably get you thrown out of a casino in real life. But he just went for it. And, It pisses me off if this guy doesn't throw some shekels their way. You
No
just won the
kidding.
guy almost $1 million.
Bad etiquette.
Exactly. Thank you.
So Big Ern is back in the next scene here. He sees Roy over at the potato bar, and Roy looks like he's seen a ghost when he turns around, and they go back and forth a bit, and Roy is about to give him a piece of his mind when Ernie grabs Claudia's arm and she turns around, and Roy can't believe that she knows him. Ernie says it's a small world when you have great tits. He wants her to give it one more chance with him, but she refuses and says she'd rather mop the floor at a peep show. Roy tells him to get out of here. You ruined my life. Ishmael stops Roy from punching him. He tells him not to stoop to his level. Ernie says, let me give you some free advice. Stay away from this guy. He's what's called a born loser, a real Munson. Ishmael tries to punch Ernie, but he misses and just hits the wall, hurting his hand. Ishmael yells at Ernie to get his childbearing hips out of here before he finds himself sniffing a big Amish ass. JD, what'd you think of this scene here with Big Ern?
I can honestly say the last thing I ever want to do is sniff a big Amish ass. That can be on my tombstone, like, even alive or dead. Like, no thank you. But it's a really intense scene. It's so great to see Bill Murray come back. Like, you almost feel like his character he's gone forgotten throughout this. But boomerang effect, boom, here he is. And now he's the villain again. Great Stanley be damned.
Claudia goes up to the hotel room and her boyfriend Stan is waiting for her. He says, you think getting hit hurt? Wait until you see what I do to your two guy friends here. Claudia tries to save the guys by calling them losers and they should just take off with the money and go. Roy gets Ish to come out of the bathroom and his hand is broken and swollen and he says it's over. So they go to check on Claudia and she's gone and she took the money too, and Roy thinks he's been had again. Munsoned again. Jesse, what'd you think here?
So the note I took here, and I want your guys' opinion on this. The Great Stanley he's a stereotypical bad guy from this era. He's Shooter, right?
Whoa. No, he's the Great Stanley.
Tell me I'm wrong, though. I
almost just spilled my drink.
I think he's just like Shooter.
He's a pretty similar character to Shooter McGavin, for sure.
He doesn't get as much screen time as Shooter did, but very similar villain. Like they're modeled after the same type of person.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point that you're making. And for what it's worth, I think that's why Kingpin is, to me, such a great movie. Because we have two different levels of villains that are impacting our heroes in this story. Like, we've got the Great Stanley, then we have Bill Murray. Like, both of them are equally bad in different regards. And then at different times, Roy Munson is the villain to Ishmael. And at different times, Vanessa Angel's the villain to Roy Munson. It's like a bunch of different chickens pecking at each other. And you're like, I just want the fried chicken.
Oh, that's a good point with the fried chicken. I like that analogy. Now, in this next scene here, they are approached by the gambler at the bar, and he says, you look a little down on your luck. And he says he will pay them $1 million to sleep with your friend here. And he points to Ishmael. Roy says he will handle this. And a second later, Roy's swimming in money, and Ish is laying on the bed face first. And we have Like a Virgin playing in the background from Madonna. And then we find out it was all just a dream. But let's listen to a clip here of Ishmael and Roy talking about the tournament. And Ish is convincing him that he is a champion and he will find a way to win.
The money we came here to win is right here in Reno. At a legitimate sporting contest where the best player wins because he's the best player. And we have the best player. Okay, I'm listening. We are going to do what we set out to do. We're going to win that tournament.
Yes! I knew it. I knew you were a champion the minute I saw you bowl, Ish.
I'm not going to bowl. You are.
You are such a loser. You're a bona fide schmuck. Look at me.
Mr. Munson, I know you can win that tournament. You're a champion.
And that never goes away. I'm sure that if you made it through the first few rounds, you'd find your touch again.
I'm Ernie McCracken.
Dude, this scene is gnarly and it's explicit, and I, again, really wish that this happened in their favor and it wasn't just a fantasy, because the ending of this movie is kind of bleak. Not that what happened in their hotel room was necessarily the 4th of July. Somebody bail me out.
It's a very creepy scene to throw in there. But it's also, it's cool because they give you not happy, but they solve their problem. They get the money. The whole thing is about money in the end, right? So it gives you a little snapshot of like, oh, they win. They got the money. But then it's like, oh, no, pull you back to reality. They're
Jim, all life is sex. Robert California.
Oh, good. Nicely done.
Jesse, what do you think of the commercial of Ernie next, where he's helping these fatherless children, and he makes the comment that these kids almost got Munson?
Continuing on what you brought up in interesting facts, that entire thing was Bill Murray ad-libbing. None of that was scripted. I think it's hilarious. The scene is great, and I think what I have written here is Big Ern is just above the law. He can just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I love that scene where he's behind her. He's acting like the quarterback and then does the Kentucky line like JD just said. That's hilarious.
It is horribly, horribly creepy. Like that he's having sex with these moms and pretending to be a dad. Like the whole premise behind it is just the greasiest thing.
And he is celebrated for it.
Yes.
As a professional athlete. ESPN, the newscasters, everybody celebrates him for his efforts.
So we enter the bowling alley next. Roy says, Ishmael, welcome to my church. Ish says, it's a pleasure to be around such great athletes. And we see a shot of these overweight guys. One actually has like cheese on his face. And Roy goes to register, and they laugh when he gives his name. And then he gives it again. He's Roy Munson. And they say he can't register unless he pays his late fee. And they add up all the, 17 years of late fees. And they go, total, $38. How cheap are these yearly fees to be a bowler? JD, what'd you think of this? I thought that was hilarious.
Dude, having been in many a bowling league, and like the weekly charges definitely exceed $38. So for him to get off the hook for many years and only owe that much, pull a Big Lebowski, write a check, worry about it cashing or bouncing later.
So the bowling tournament starts up. Roy's first ball takes his rubber hand with it, but he rolls a strike. He asks the guy next to him if he has a Phillips. Then we've got a montage next of all the bowling, and Roy seems to be doing really well, but so does Ernie. Roy's interviewed after it's over. He's asked what he's been doing for the last 17 years. He says, well, after the hand, I've been drinking. Lots of drinking. The guy says, well, it looks like you've... he says something along the lines of, it seems like you're doing better now. And he's like, yeah. And they asked him if he wants a drink, and Roy's like, are you buying? What'd you think of that scene, Jesse?
I love that. So you still drinking? Well, you buying? It's great. This is one of the scenes in the movie that actually I'm not a huge fan of, because here you're seeing is he can still bowl. The kid still got it. So he's kind of just ruined his entire life by choice. And it's kind of makes me mad. It's like, well, maybe if he just tried bowling with the hand over the years, he'd still be a pro bowler. So it kind of bums me out, I guess.
I would like to add, if you're watching the way that Ernie bowls here, this is really Bill Murray. And he added in that little, the left hand that kind of comes out as he starts to bowl. And they said he was actually really good. Woody Harrelson, however, was terrible at bowling. And the Farrelly brothers said he might have bowled 1 or 2 strikes the entire filming. But Bill Murray at the end here bowls all the strikes in the real crowd emotion, which I thought was awesome. We'll talk more about that in a minute here. So next day, Roy continues to bowl very well. Ish is cheering him on. Roy's made his way into the semifinals, and Ernie has as well. A message pops up on the screen that says, Roy, I made a mistake. Let's get married. And he turns to find Claudia, but looks down the alley and sees Ernie playing a prank and having another laugh at Munson's expense here. So the next day, Roy is announced as a major contender by the announcers, and he does his patented splits after he bowls a strike, but he almost rips his sack. Chris Berman from ESPN is announcing the championship final. Ernie versus Roy in the finals. Roy's puking in the toilet. Ish wants to know if he's okay and if he's been drinking. Roy says, no, he doesn't puke when he's drinking. He pukes when he's not. JD, is that true for you?
Yeah, no, that's legit. That adds up.
Nice. What do you think of all these montages here with the bowling and Roy making it all the way to the finals?
I'm with Jesse. Like, it took me a good amount to suspend my disbelief that he's able to physically roll the ball down the lane. Like, they've established how rubbery his fingers are, right? I don't know.
I feel like there should have been a scene here where he gets like a new hand, and it makes it easier for him to bowl. Like I feel like that would have made more sense.
Or he meets a squirrel that puts twigs in his prosthetic hand, so we get a little bit of the flexibility and rigidity. I don't know. Just saying. I love squirrels.
Roy and Ernie enter the bowling alley, and they're getting introduced to the crowd. Roy trips over the ball return, and the announcers say that Ernie has done for bowling what Muhammad Ali has done for boxing. Ernie has a clear bowling ball with a rose in the middle of it. What do you think of his bowling form here? I know I just mentioned that a minute ago. Jesse, what do you think of Ernie's bowling style?
Well, so as bowlers growing up, Justin and myself, it's the same thing as like Happy Gilmore's swing.
Yes.
You tried it out. At some point you were bowling and you tried the big earn approach. And then the ball, just so you guys are, fully caught up here, you can get that ball from a website for about $150. I looked it up when I watched it. So when I eventually get back into bowling here in a few months, I'm going to probably get myself one of those. So just if you guys are curious, they're out there. They're easy to find.
You better record yourself bowling exactly like this, including like the air hump after he bowls a strike.
Absolutely. Yes.
Roy, now called the Rubber Man, a fan runs out to try and give Roy a kiss. She's got some melons bouncing around here. She wasn't great looking, but I was just like, good God, those are some big boobs. Roy matches Ernie's strike here on the first frame, and then we've got a montage next of the head-to-head bowling between Roy and Ernie. Ernie's wig is starting to fall off here as the tournament goes on, and he doesn't fix it, and that cracked me up. Ernie gets a spare. Roy bowls another strike. Ernie tries to play mind games with Roy, but it appears to do nothing to him. And so, I mean, it would appear to me like Roy is kind of blowing him out of the water at the beginning, but I mean, when we get to the last frame here, I mean, they're neck and neck. So we smash to the bar with Claudia and Stan. He leaves, and she asks to have the game put on the TV so she can watch. We reach the 10th frame, and Roy is up by 9 pins. And they say a strike here provides some breathing room. Roy leaves a 7-10 split, and they say the 7-10 is virtually impossible to pick up. Ishmael's brother arrives to take him home. Ishmael says there's no way he can go home now. It's the 10th frame, and I still got half a beer left. And then his brother's just like, nope, we got to go. So Ish is like, okay, puts down his beer and leaves with him. Before we get to the last shot of Roy here, JD, what do you think of this scene here with Ishmael picking up and leaving on Roy?
It creates a really dynamic, emotional event because we have established what Roy and Ishmael have gone through and how important each is to the other and the coach, mentor, mentee relationship. And to me, like, this is the first time that we necessarily think how important, like, Ishmael is to Roy. Like, to see him, like, stripped and pulled away, I was kind of like heartbroken for Munson. I was like, holy moly, he's fully alone.
And then Roy bowls here in the next scene and does pick up the split. And then when he turns around, Roy notices that Ishmael is gone. The announcers say Ernie needs 3 strikes to win it. He throws the first ball and gets a strike. Second ball, same thing. He's kind of dancing in celebration here. The announcer says it comes down to this one ball. 1 strike, $1 million. Ernie's last ball, he throws another strike, and then he starts rolling on the floor in celebration. He yells, "I am the greatest! Big Ern!" Ernie goes over to shake Roy's hand, and he pulls off the fake hand and just tosses it. Roy sits there in disappointment, and we can hear Ernie saying in the background, "I just don't want to lose to a guy with a hook for a hand." Roy is staring off as everyone surrounds him, and eventually everybody's cleared out, and it's just the janitors kind of cleaning around him. Jesse, what do you think of the ending here of this big game?
Well, I'm going to steal some of your interesting fact thunder, but he actually Bill Murray hit all 3 strikes in a row for this scene.
Yeah.
So that was like part of his emotion it was all real. And this scene is kind of crazy to me. Like, he's going nuts. You've got so many fans at a bowling event, which still blows my mind. I've actually watched bowling on TV before and never seen that many people there. And then he's still $1 million winner, and he's still talking trash to Roy Munson and rips his hand off. Like, Big Ern, still Big Ern. You know, he's still a dick.
Yep. All right, so Ernie's packing up the car next. Claudia's boyfriend comes over to ask where she's at. He says she stole the money and he can't find her. And then they proceed to punch Roy in the stomach. Roy punches the crony in the nuts. The crony punches Stan in the nuts, and now they're all 3 killed over here. JD, what do you think of this scene?
It's the scene's hilarious, but it's such a great, shit slips downstream. And so it's like a perfect evidence example of Stanley punches him, he bumps the crony, and the crony then just gibbers right back to Stanley. And I think it's like an underrated metaphor for what this movie represents, because everything that Munson has gone through, from everything that Bill Murray has forced onto him, I don't know, it's like they're Munsoned in this moment.
So 1 week later, Roy gets a knock at his apartment door. Claudia comes in. She says, "I got the money, Roy." Roy says, "You left us flat, Claudia. You left when we needed you most." Let's listen to a clip here of Claudia explaining what happened.
Go away. You'll get your rent money tomorrow.
Hey, Roy.
Claudia.
I got the money, Roy.
You left us flat, Claudia. You dumped us when we needed you the most. You tricked us.
Look, if I'd stuck with you, Stanley would have hurt you and he would have hurt Ishmael.
What happened to McCracken?
I never went with him. I just made those phone calls to throw Stanley off my scent. Maybe give Big Ern a little payback.
What'd you think of this scene here with Claudia and her explanation?
Well, the first thing I want to bring attention to, the amount of liquor bottles in Roy's kitchen is absolutely absurd. But, Roy's he's a reformed man. He's pouring them all out. So you see another character growth moment here where he's, maybe he's not on the drinking anymore. And
unless
then,
you're buying.
Exactly. Are you buying? And then Claudia, it's pretty cool that you want to believe that their connection is deeper and she's not just some floozy that runs back with the great Stanley. And yeah, she comes back and she robs Stanley and he had bet against Roy and won. So the fact that this guy's betting $40,000 on bowling is outstanding.
And then Roy's like, oh, you got some money? Cool. Here's a $500,000 check from his new sponsorship with Trojan. He says this is only getting divided one way. And he snatches the check away from her. We cut to Ishmael. He's about to arrive home. He says he can't face him. He wanted to be the hero. His brother pats him on the back and says, we all know you meant well. He enters the house, and Roy and Claudia are at the table. His father says they came to tell us the truth about the entire trip. They say that Roy told us everything. The women, the booze, the lying. He told us on how you got him to quit everything. Roy told us that when he wanted to quit, you wouldn't let him, and how you quoted the scriptures to him. Ish says, well, what about the bank and property? They say that's all been taken care of by Brother Roy and Miss Claudia. They gave us the $500,000. And Ishmael hugs Claudia. And then outside we have a nice moment with Roy and Ish as they're saying goodbye. Roy thanks him for saving him. And Ish says, you lost me. So Rebecca says, come on, Ishmael. Everyone's waiting to hear about the missionary work that you did with Mr. Munson. And they take off. Claudia hands Roy his pocket watch. She fixed it for him. And she says all she had to do was wind it. Roy says, oh, that's one of those. So then they start making out and the credits roll. So, JD, what'd you think of the ending of the film here?
Kingpin definitely takes and wraps the lasso around the story, squeezes out all of our energy and the familiarity that we've built with the characters, and just ties it up very nicely. I'm so satisfied with the way that it ends. I'm good for the sequel with Roy Munson and Dwight Schrute.
Gosh, that would be amazing. Jesse, what about you? What'd you think of the ending?
I'm with Justin on this. It's kind of cheesy the way everything works out, but they take you through such ups and downs throughout the movie. It's very satisfying to get a good happy ending, and for the most part, all loose ends are tied. Ishmael's good with his family, Roy's off the booze, Roy's got the girl. Kind of everything's tied up, and it is a satisfying end to the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching this. I feel like I need to watch this more often than once every 10 years or so. It had been a while since I watched it, but I thought the performances are great. It's an underrated movie. It's a shame it didn't do better box office wise. They may have made a sequel. Who knows? But also the Farrelly brothers waited 15 years to do Dumb and Dumber sequel, so maybe we don't want to see that. I don't know.
Do you think that there's any possibility that they do a sequel movie that focuses on female bowlers and they call it Queenpin? I'm just saying, just throwing that out there.
Why not? Why not? In this
they
climate?
Did a Ghostbusters female version.
And the Ocean's female versions on the freaking wings to come out.
Yeah, let us not forget Karate Kid Part 4, the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank. And they'll remake anything.
Waxing on and waxing off in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Total different meaning.
Brutal.
Ayo!
So, Jesse, thanks for joining us on this episode. We had a good time. It's your third episode with us, and we look forward to the next one. Maybe sometime next month. We'll have to figure out our schedules here. As always, you can follow us at Back in Time Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and everything online is at Back in Time Pod. Our website's backintimepod.wordpress.com. And then also, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/backintimepod. We will be back next week with another episode. We're going to be doing Super Troopers right before the release of the new movie Super Troopers 2, a movie that they did put together a sequel for, and I'm looking forward to it. So that'll come out on Monday the 16th, and then the movie drops on Friday all across America in theaters everywhere. But for JD, myself, and Jesse, it is time to climb back into the DeLorean, punch in today's date, and return back to present day. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
It opened in the 10th frame. I was wrong!
It means your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one. Both of you.